say if you were a young child at 3 and you were in the space of shame, so always criticize that you're not good enough, like this isn't good, you're breaking this, you're breaking that, and all you're wanting to see is the happiness in your caregiver. And so if they're always looking stern and angry, then you interpret that, well, I'm the cause of that, so let me feel, and then that
Mm,
shame starts to create that defense mechanism of, okay,
mm,
change this behavior, because you're not getting that validation and sense of belonging, and most of all, the safety,
mm,
because you don't feel safe when you feel that people are angry or have a really hard look on their face, or they feel cold.
mm.
That safety is gone, and then the nervous system is going to go into a fight or flight to have a sense of protection.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Today is another fantastic day. It's a beautiful, beautiful day to have an interview, and I'm already have a big laugh on my face because there were so many bloopers in the creation, not just of that start of the interview. My guest, NatNat Bedard, and me had already a fantastic time. So, guys, if that continues like that, you're in for a ride, honestly. So, forgive us if the gods of the internet have got their own ideas how this interview will go. But having said that, I mean, it's actually very, very beautiful because NatNat and me are both examples of the power of mindfulness and the power of post-traumatic growth. And as that, we take each and every moment as it comes and make the best out of each situation. And luckily, we both have developed a lot of tools in our toolkit to deal with that. And therefore, because there are so many parallels a little bit in our stories, I can't wait to welcome NatNat to my show. NatNat, let's have fun. Welcome.
Thank you so much for such a beautiful introduction and being vulnerable. Because a lot of times with doing podcasts or being on air, we want a sense of perfectionist, yet you want to be able to relate with the audience and let them know that we're all human beings. So if you want to teach well-being, you have to allow some of your personal character and energy to be translated, so that people don't feel, well, that person looks too made up, so I cannot achieve what they
Yeah.
are doing in their life. That it's actually relatable, that they're a human and they do bloopers, and it's messy and mistakes, and we laugh our way through it, because it's to come back into a childlike state.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And that's the interesting thing, isn't it? As a child, you really don't yet have, well, when do you develop this feeling of shame and guilt of when suddenly mistakes are no longer allowed, but rather frowned upon and changed? When does that happen? When do children sort of move into away from that childlike state?
It all depends on how their childhood was. So it all depends on what they experience. Some experience it from like about 3, others experience it around 6. And I think a lot of it gets introduced in the education system,
Mm,
because all of a sudden, if you're not getting that perfect grade, you're not
mm,
getting the praise anymore, and you're scolded that you're not doing enough and you're not accomplishing enough. So you start separating from your worth, because now your worth comes from doing and
mm,
accomplishing
mm.
rather than just being.
Mm. Very, very true, isn't it? The external validation, which can become as intoxicating when it is there, and like an addiction when it is not there, when you're hunting for it, and you have never figured out internal ways to do that. Wow. Um, but for you to get to the point that you are now, that you have got Lift OneSelf coaching, um, it doesn't just happen like that. So, what was your story? What was your start where you actually felt, can't continue like that?
Um, well, my childhood had a lot of trauma, and I navigated through it the best I could. I didn't have tools, and I didn't have the language. Yet what I'm very thankful for is that I still express my emotions and I was still tethered to my curiosity. I used to get scolded a lot as a child because I would do critical thinking and question things. And then I was the child that was defiant and just going against the rules. And so that in itself makes it challenging to navigate with institutes and adults and everything. Yet 10 years ago, my life came to a crash. I was debilitated. I was stuck in bed. I kept going to the emergency room. I would see my family doctor and she would say, I cannot help you. You need to go to the emergency room so that they can get you in there. My eyes had moved. They were cross-eyed and I had vertigo. And I kept going to the ER and it took like 5 times. They just kept saying I had the flu. So 3 months of my son carrying me like a baby into the hospital and them sending me back saying, oh, just take the flu shot or whatnot.
Shit.
It came to discover that I had lesions in my cerebellum and brainstem. And so they admitted me. What I learned also is don't go to the ER on the weekends. Do not go to the ER on weekends because it's not the same care as it is on weekdays. So when they discovered that in the MRI, it was a rush that it could be a plethora of different things. And they were giving me like a life expectancy of 6 months. And so I was admitted right away. They took out so much blood that the nurse had said she's never drawn so much blood in one sitting before. Like, she's like, you may as well just have done a blood transfusion because you're testing for everything.
Absolutely.
And then the next day I had to get a lumbar puncture, some know it as a spinal tap. And that was very uncomfortable because I was on a bed that was not hard and stiff. So that touched some nerve endings that I got really intimately aware of what our spinal cord and what sensations and feelings that can go on. Because at one point when he tried to take the needle, like puncture the needle in, it felt like a truck was running over my kneecap. Like the whole hall of the hospital heard me scream. So almost 40 days I was admitted in the hospital. So, it's something serious if they're keeping you in there. And I went through a battery of tests and it kept coming back atypical, yet they couldn't find out what was causing these lesions. And at one point too, lesions don't move. And when they did another MRI, they were like, your lesions are moving. And I'm like, they're like, what medication are you taking? I'm like, I'm in the hospital with you guys. It's whatever you're giving me. And I was saying no to a lot of things because I didn't want to take the prednisone. So, because I didn't have a diagnosis, they were going to do a brain biopsy. But thankfully, one doctor said, you know what, we're doing all these tests on her and they're coming back atypical. So let's hold on the brain biopsy because we could do some damage and still don't have information. So I was released with no plan, no diagnosis, and into the wilderness, as you would say, home. And so in that, I relapsed because I went back into certain situations that now hindsight is 2020, let me recognize really what energy is. And sometimes we keep putting ourselves in places and with people thinking that it will best serve us, yet really it's harming us. And so I had another relapse, went to the ER, they put me on prednisone, I was on high morphine. And then a year later, I discovered meditation. And it was transcendental meditation. And the meditation allowed me to come out of the hypervigilance and allow the somatic release of so much trauma throughout the decades.
Beautiful.
And even my teacher said, most people run away from meditation because it just gets to be too much to be in that stillness. And I'm like, I totally understand why. Because there's a lot of things that you're feeling and facing that is very overwhelming. And if you don't have, like, I almost had like death on my back because of these lesions and the illness. that I was like, I have no choice but to keep going forward.
Sure.
And so I just
NatNat,
kept going.
let me just say a few things there to just also maybe put from a doctor's hat, an anesthetist hat perspective. There were so many beautiful things you have said, and it's so lovely that you described it all from the recipient's, the patient's point of view, because none of these things are necessarily nice. The way you describe the spinal tap is often something that's being done by maybe more junior doctors who maybe don't know it, whilst yet I perform a spinal tap 3 times a day as a spinal anesthetic. When we do exactly the same thing and put a local anesthetic into the spine to numb you from the belly button downwards, to take the pain away from a knee operation or from a hip operation, etc. And there we don't see that kind of screaming and kind of things.
Yeah.
So
that's why I said the bed was not a stiff bed. It was actually one of those inflatable beds when there's, yeah. So I see your face. So you understand what.
Absolutely. But I just want to say that out there, guys, don't expect that. That is unfortunately, NatNat had a really bad experience there that I don't want to negate. I want to say I'm so sorry to hear that, but that's not necessarily something you need to expect if you have that. Far more interesting, though, is the sheer fact that you have had lesions within your brainstem. The brainstem is basically pretty much, where my nose, underneath my nose. If you could just go to the very back, that's where the brainstem is. And it's basically where all the cables are coming through. You've got all the supercomputer up there and all the cables coming through there. And there are still heaps of computers sitting in the brainstem. And it's a very narrow area. And if there's something going pear-shaped in there, that can be life-threatening. And so therefore, again, the words that you said and the symptoms that you had were, I'm sure, very frightening and very, very correct. So I'm so pleased to see you here being with me, actually talking to me, and not being on a life-supporting machine or something like that, because these kind of things can happen. It sounds very much like an encephalitis. It sounds very much like things have changed. The lesions have changed. So maybe a viral kind of attack on the brain that was happening over a period of time, and then finally sort of burned itself out. Because this was a year of suffering, was it not? When you
For what do you mean? The symptoms? Or?
Yes, the symptoms when they started towards finally no longer being able to be looked after by your children.
I started getting really fatigued in the summertime, and I had a hypothyroidism. So we thought, okay, my thyroid was starting to act up.
Yeah.
And then it was December that I just crashed. And could not think, like the pain that I experienced, the neurologist said because there was swelling in my meninges, so it would be equivalent to meningitis. So to be able to have still function, and my thyroid also, my TSH was at a 185, I think, reading, where it would like surpass. So when endocrinology came in, they're like, you should be in a coma. I don't understand why you're functioning. So there were a lot of things that perplex the medical system.
No. But that is not necessarily surprising for someone like me who's interested in functional medicine, because we know that all these systems are interlinked. Imagine a big amount of spider webs, and if you pull on one spider web, it just doesn't just only do immunology. So pull on the immune system, and then nothing else moves. No. The hormones are interlinked with that as well, and you have got other things interlinked. So when we then fast forward towards the energy healing, towards all that kind of things are interlinked within the body and within the body systems. So therefore, it is not surprising at all. So you had a serious assault on your body, where a lot of systems took a hit and came out in sympathy. and therefore you had a plethora of symptoms and signs that doctors could see. And often enough, it's very hard for doctors who, if a doctor only has got a hammer, he's looking for a nail. And another doctor only has got a knife while he's looking for something to cut out. And that's often the difficulty when you have got high functional specialists. And you sometimes don't get to it. But in your case, it seems to be that with the help of medications and time, things started to improve. Is that correct?
Actually, the medication actually made it worse, so I stopped the medication.
Not something we recommend. Okay, as a,
No.
just for the records.
It's not something to recommend for anybody, and I always tell people this was my own decision and my own journey, and I still was followed by the medical system. And like I said, like anybody that's been on prednisone, you know, there's many other symptoms that start, because I was on a very high dose of prednisone because they were trying to bring down inflammation for something and they didn't know what the root cause was.
But also, which was life-threatening. Let's not mess around here, okay? So my colleagues did probably exactly the right thing, okay? So they hit you hard because they were worried about you. So
of course. And so that's why I said the meditation allowed me to remove a lot of the static energy that was in my nervous system.
Beautiful.
And then that's where I started getting a clear signaling of stop this medication, stop. So, and I kept ignoring him, like, no, I'm not. Yet I finally listened to it. I highly do not recommend anybody doing that, because coming off prednisone and morphine at the same time, I understand what drug addicts go through. I was like, where are the unicorns pooping out rainbows? Like, what is this reality? This sucks. And where am I? I'm like, I gotta stay here. Like, what is this?
Okay.
And it took a long time for my cortisol, for my body to kick back in to produce its own cortisol. And so the neurologist was like, you know, that in itself is dangerous because you have no immune system. And I had twins like that were only 4, and well, they were 5 in 2015. So high needs twins while navigating this. Look at the cocktail of really having to face reality and find out what works with my energy, and look at what I can use as tools to work with my reality and not run away from it. So I removed alcohol from my system. I removed sex. I didn't really do gambling. I didn't smoke cigarettes. I didn't indulge in marijuana or any other drugs. So it was really the alcohol, the spending money, and the emotional eating that I really, and sex also, that I really engaged. So I really was facing myself and not using these numbing mechanisms for me to not face the pain, face the emotional energy charges that were inside of me, if that makes sense.
With hindsight, of course, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. But at that time, you basically threw all the toys out of the cot. You burned all the crutches that had somehow maybe given you a bit of pleasure or has reduced the pain a little bit. That sounds like a rough ride. And whilst with hindsight, of course, it is the beautiful thing, but were you alone at that time? Where did you get the guidance, or how did you not lose hope?
Inside. And it all came from inside by doing my meditation and really having trust and really listening to the internal and really connecting back into the love and the worth within myself, because I was very disconnected from it.
Beautiful.
Very disconnected from it. And, you know, when this, like the pain with, like I had physical pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, yet facing that and rewiring and reconnecting into a place that I had been disconnected from when I was a child. because, all through my childhood and teenage, and even in my 20s and 30s, there was a lot of suicidal ideation. And even now, when my nervous system gets dysregulated, those suicidal ideations will come into my mind. Yet I do understand now those are defense mechanisms trying to protect me from the pain and the inner
Mm,
turmoil that I'm
mm,
feeling inside of
mm,
certain emotions that I've pushed away that are challenging to interact with and let
mm,
pass through my
mm.
system, my body.
Beautiful. And yeah,
And when I say inside too, there was a lot of reading. There's a lot of I've taken some courses online, yet reading a lot of spiritual texts, really getting into the neurology and understanding the nervous system, because when I was sick in the hospital, I wasn't able to, they didn't think I'd walk again. They didn't think I'd function. I wasn't able to formulate thoughts and
mm,
decision making. So to come back into there, it was like I was a baby again, a clean slate. And then whenever, fear came or frustration, I felt those chemical drops in my body. So when we get a dump of dopamine or
mm,
adrenaline,
mm.
like I actually felt those things happen in real time in my body.
Wow.
So it really gave me a better sense of internally how the nervous system reacts to things, and how our thoughts can, start creating these emotions and these energies and everything else. So it's really like a curriculum that I came in. And when I was
Wow.
speaking to my surgeon and the neurologist, they were like, I don't know how it got like that, and I don't know how it's reversing itself, yet it sounds like some mindfulness. And that frustrated me a bit, because I was like, here I am willing to be this patient to explain what my inner terrain is and what I'm going through, yet nobody was listening to it. It's like, well, just keep doing what you're doing because obviously it's working. And I'm like, wouldn't this help other people?
As I said, if you only have got a hammer, then either it's a nail or you don't know what to do with it. And and with that, I'm not too negative to my colleagues, but it's just a fact. It is.
It's understanding what you're taught is what you're taught. And if you don't know any better, and if you don't
No,
have curiosity,
no.
because what I remind people too is the medical system is very traumatizing. Like if you get it wrong, you are berated, and you're not even able to have a space to say like, oh, maybe I'm not seeing it properly, or let me
Mm,
investigate. So there are some that come out of the institute like yourself and want to see the whole as a functional, because
mm,
that was very frustrating where I had like 5 different teams and nobody wanted to communicate. They'd be like, well, that's endocrinology and that's the heart problem and that's the brain. And I'm
exactly.
like,
Exactly.
this whole thing's communicating with each other, and nobody wanted to take responsibility. I'm like,
But
hey, I'm the person.
look, the field of functional medicine has moved from the fringe into a very established and now accepted field only within the last 10, 20 years. Let's be clear
Yeah.
about that. And for example, when I think back in the 80s, when I was trained at university, functional meant psychology. It's all in the head and in a negative way. That was the
Mhm.
connotation at that time when I was studying. It's only nowadays that functional medicine is um, just the word functional medicine is actually so beautiful because it shows really how the function of the human body is influenced by so many systems, and by us actually looking at a root cause analysis of problems, we then find the adverse childhood experiences, we find the psychological stresses, we find those things that are contributing to our genes and cause certain genes to be active, other to be dormant, and suddenly you have got changes within the body that are setting yourself up for something. Then you wash some alcohol over it and some other maybe not so nice substances over it. Then you add the standard American diet, which is truly sad,
Yeah.
and add that over it, add that our lifestyle, the lack of sleep, the huge amounts of stress, all the problems that we face every day. Are you really surprised that then a virus is having a field day? Because all the chaos in there. Oh, look, no one is watching. Let's go in there, have some fun. So that is nowadays something that increasingly doctors recognize. And I think that for us, there are two lessons here. I think in the first instance, shit happens, and there will be times when the classic medical fields are struggling to come to terms with a presentation of a patient. But that doesn't mean to say it's all in your head. In your case, it was actually literally with the lesions there, but
Yeah.
not in the way that we normally use that description. It's in your head. The second thing is that each and every trauma has the potential for either to wipe you out or to actually make you stronger. And in your case, I think that is the huge post-traumatic growth that you have experienced. And look at you now. You are a woman who is going out there and who is making the world a better place by applying the lessons you had to learn the hard way. Wow.
Yeah. And so when people are in my presence, you have a very calming spirit. And it's that since I've been young, people have always talked to me and opened up.
Yeah.
Like as a child, I wanted to be a child psychologist, but I didn't follow through on that path. And so now it's like, I know how to co-regulate with somebody so that their nervous system is disarmed and that they can feel a sense of openness and honesty to actually be authentic of what are they actually feeling and thinking, and what are the things that they're perceiving about themselves rather than the mask that they're putting on for the outside world or for other people.
No, we masks never. Bullshit.
Yeah,
But that's normal though, isn't it? Everyone
of
is
course.
wearing a mask. Everyone
You have to.
is. So, I mean, how do you break through that? How do you, how breakthrough is a dramatic word. How do you allow people to drop their masks?
Well, just in my presence, they don't feel judgment and they can bring down the defense mechanism of their own judgment.
Mm.
Because we think other people are judging us, but we're going through the filter of our own judgment that comes back at us.
Ouch. Beautiful. The inner critic, isn't it?
And that's your nervous system just trying to protect you. Because it was stewed in, okay, you asked about when you're a child, and say if you were a young child at 3 and you were in the space of shame, so always criticize that you're not good enough, like this isn't good, you're breaking this, you're breaking that, and all you're wanting to see is the happiness in your caregiver. And so if they're always looking stern and angry, then you interpret that, well, I'm the cause of that, so let me feel, and then that shame starts to create that defense mechanism of, okay, change this behavior because you're not getting that validation and sense of belonging, and most of all, the safety. Because you don't feel safe when you feel that people are angry or have a really hard look on their face or they feel cold. That safety is gone, and then the nervous system is going to go into a fight or flight to have a sense of protection. And so when you're able to identify, oh, wait, I've now created this perception of shame and this inner critic comes in, that is my cue of I'm dysregulated and I need safety. And a lot of times the safety is just saying I'm in fear of something, which isn't in our language.
Exactly.
We don't even know how to get to the root of just saying I'm afraid of whatever that might be.
And most of us don't recognize that the flow-on effects are due to fear. You were saying 2 of the flow-on effects, fight and flight. There are more, isn't it? 4 Fs.
Yes, the 4 Fs, the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So the fight, you're going to get violent and get aggressive with somebody. The flight is you're going to run away because it's just too overwhelming. And those two are really important in the world when you really have to protect yourself. Yet then there comes the freeze where you're just frozen and you allow a lot of things to happen and you don't advocate for yourself. And then the fawn is where we get into the people pleasing, that we adapt to the people and we do what they want. Not that it's intentional, it's just in a way of safety, of wanting that sense of belonging and connection.
And each of them have got their own problems. Each of them are temporary band-aids. And in all fairness, let's not be silly. I mean, we are often nowadays thinking of fight and flight as something really negative. It is not. If you walk in front of a car that is about to kill you, yes, adrenaline is really, really good. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, okay? So fight and flight is all a natural response. The problem
I
is,
changed the language of berating trauma and berating the nervous system. It is a system you just haven't learned how to navigate with.
beautiful, beautiful. Exactly.
Like,
Oh,
we need it.
well, that's
You
right.
need it. Like, yeah. Sorry.
No, not at all. We both are so, yes.
You know how I teach people too, because I know when people hear the nervous system, they're like, oh, that's too academic. I can't talk about it. I'm like, okay, let me tell you something. You're already driving in this car and you're on autopilot. So it's taking you all over the place. So to say that you do not know what a nervous system is diminishing your own power because you're already navigating in it. So my purpose and what my intention is to allow people to come into a simplicity of understanding their unique biology. And so that we can come out of this autopilot, which is reaction, and create a stimulus of space. So you're not just in the stimulus and reacting, that you can take a pause and shift down out of your gears, and so that you can go into a manual and use the energy. Because even when people are like, okay, well, meditation will just keep you peaceful and calm, and it's like, that's not a healthy nervous system neither. It needs people to engage with stress. Stress is healthy too. It's that if you have too much of it, and a lot of the stress that gets created psychologically is that you created a story in your head and it's not matching up with the external. So your biology is trying to get you to these two places, which are polar opposites, and running up your system with cortisol and adrenaline, and you're running inside like a treadmill, but you are really physically not going anywhere. So that builds up and impacts your systems. So rather than say that you want to tame this wild stallion, it's don't be dragged by the wild stallion anymore. Learn to ride it and use its power. You don't want to tame a wild stallion. You want to be able to use its power to its full potential.
Beautiful. That's a lovely way of looking at it. You're quite right. You're quite right. But having said that, you were saying the meditation, and that if you're only in that serene space, that it doesn't work. Most of us don't know about meditation, and most of us don't know about the need to slow down and stop. And meditation is one way of doing so. I think if we can just accept that our body is actually such a beautiful, beautiful thing that has its own intelligence, and our body has got means and ways of letting you know, but it's often speaking a language that you're not yet used to. So therefore, we need to learn about that language. And sometimes that language can be really our language, but for that we need to be still. We need to be calm. And often enough, if I'm relaxing under the shower, for example, I have these kind of mini mental breaks, so to speak. The moment I step into the shower, and then my mind goes blank and suddenly something comes out. And typically in the past, it was either a new idea for a project or something, but my mind offers me solutions. And so does everyone else's. We are just not listening to them. There is the gut feeling that our body tries to give us an intuition and tries to give us solutions there. And many of us have forgotten how to listen to that. Or if we listen to a gut feeling, we are just reactions. We are reactive to it rather than thinking, okay, I've got a sense here. Quick analysis, quick think, quick feel, and then do something about it. What do you think about that?
You see, that's why I say connecting people back into their intuition. Most people, when they were young, when they walked into a room, they felt that there was something wrong. Yet
Mm,
the adults probably told them, no, no, everything's okay. And you're not seeing it properly. When in actuality, they actually felt the vibration that was going on
mm,
in the room,
mm,
and they were right and correct. Yet, because the adults and they trust the
mm,
adults, they're like, okay, I must see it wrong. I must feel it wrong. So let me not listen to this part of my biology anymore.
mm, mm,
And I don't trust it anymore, because every time I say that there's something wrong, the people are yelling at me saying, no, there's nothing wrong with us, and stop with it. Why? Because the
yes,
adults didn't know how to communicate about emotions and anger, and
mm,
let their children know that disagreements are healthy. It's how are we going to repair it? Yet
nice.
a lot of times it was believed that children couldn't handle emotions, or big emotions, or, really understand what it is to be a human and connect with other humans. So people disconnected from that gut feeling, that intuition. And so to come back into that, it's very
Mm,
counterintuitive, and it feels very threatening,
mm,
and you don't know how to trust it. So it's building back that rewiring, that repair with the curiosity and the intuition, and trusting your nervous system that we are feeling bodies that think. We feel a vibration way before there might be a thought or words.
mm, mm. Beautiful. But
It's
also,
really
it's let's be clear though. In order to have a good gut feeling, you also need to have a good gut. And unfortunately, with the way that we treat our bodies, our gut is often in a very bad state of repair. And I think this is so important to say. So when doctors traditionally said you should eat all your veggies, and if we nowadays say please eat your rainbow literally, and have a healthy food plan, let's say a Mediterranean food plan or something like that, we actually have got a really good reason to say so, because simply spoken, we want to heal the gut. The gut is often one of the recipients of the stress, and the gut microbiome is often so skewed. The bacteria that are our best friends are getting hammered by our behaviors, by our stress levels, and it's absolutely brutal. So we need to do something there. We need to actually protect our gut so that we can get a better gut feeling. But to
Yeah.
just give you a bit of information, up here, about 1.5 kilogram of nerve tissue is your brain. Down here in your gut, 1.5 kilogram of nerve tissue is surrounding your gut. So when we say you've got a gut feeling, well, actually, and many of those things that you need, like serotonin, like a really sort of the antidepressing hormone, a lot of it is being produced in the gut. So again, if we start to accept all those interlinkages, wouldn't that be a way to start teasing things apart?
Mhm. Exactly. You're being able to take out the static and have a clear connection.
Hmm,
And you're able to hear more clearly. Like, brain fog is a real thing because of our diets and the stress that
hmm,
goes on. When they say there's a second brain in your stomach, in your gut, it's a real thing, because it's all connected.
hmm.
It is giving the information down there to come back up there.
Yep.
And so, my friend right now is going through pancreatic cancer. And in March, they had told her they only gave her 3 months, and here she is a year later. And like she
Hmm,
said, like, and other people, they were like, if you weren't with her, I don't think she would be this far, because I've helped her to engage with her anxiety, helped to shift some of her lifestyle, really release some things in the nervous system, and hold that space of co-regulation. Yet what I find is still disappointing is when I'm suggesting about nutrition or things, they're not talking about it. And then when they're saying, well, get your fats, and I'm like, well, there's a difference between McDonald's fats and an avocado fats. And they're like, well, we don't really know that there's something. I was like, well, let me ask you, has there been any data or tests? Well, no. Well, that's why you don't know, because there's been no research and money
Oh,
put on.
there has been, there is heaps and heaps, but I've forgotten the amount of data, the amount of studies that are produced each and every day. Therefore, it's so hard unless you've got an interest in those fields and actually expand your horizons in that direction. You will never know if you don't go listen to the right webinars. How the hell do you know? And I think that is again a problem that we experience in the medical world. We are drowned by information, and there's only so much we can learn.
And
Therefore,
big
it is.
pharma, we have to open up the dialogue that big pharma has an influence on not allowing certain information to be there. So me, you have your
Mm,
medical standards, me that doesn't have a medical background, just my own experience and what I've
mm,
researched. And
mm,
when I'm speaking about this, they're like, you're really like you really know what you're speaking about. Yet there's still this resistance to be a little bit more curious, because we just have to do what the Institute is
yep.
demanding from us. And so it's like, wow, like even when we're saying, like, use turmeric, well, this is going to go against the chemo bag. And it's like, when you're wanting to introduce natural parts, it's like, well, that has a counteraction to the chemo medication. So it becomes a real challenge of
Mm,
how do we blend the two, because it's not an all or nothing, because
correct.
medicine is here for a reason. And
Mm,
if she didn't have her chemo, I don't know that she would be here right now, because
absolutely.
it has shrunk the tumors, that they were very
Beautiful.
surprised. Like the oncologist is like, you've surpassed my expectations. Like, I didn't
Beautiful.
even think this was going to work with you.
Mm,
So it's not this all or nothing. And that's where I want to take away these
mm,
conversations, because people get on this bandwagon of it's only this way, it's only that
mm.
way. And it's like,
No, it
wait,
isn't.
everybody's biology and way has its own menu. And this isn't a la carte of one size fits all.
Mm,
So let's bring in the dialogue of having communication, but let's not be naive that those that profit and have capitalistic, um, I'm losing my words right now, but they
mm.
have their way, like they're going to get profit from this. So they're going to stunt certain communication that's going to impact their pockets. It's a real thing. And
Oh, it's
so
very much
it's
so.
like, okay, how do we navigate through this?
It's very much so. Please. Um, Wow, wow, wow. I don't have a solution here, but I love it that you are thinking so much outside of the square, because these things have got implications. We are socially engineered. There is a shepherd who's leading all the nice sheep around and pulling us along, and those shepherds are, of course, looking very much after their own pocket. So there is big pharma out there. There is we have seen changes in public opinion. And when I say pharma, let's think a bit broader. Lobbying with regards to certain foods, with regards to certain advertisements. So it is the way we are being led into a consumer society, especially the United States. Where
Oh
the
yeah.
standard American diet is so inflammatory, so bad for you, so destructive for you. It's no surprise that the amount of cancers, even in younger people, are going up due to due to what we are doing, what we are being told is normal, to be constantly connected, to be living a certain lifestyle. Oh, but my God. So I love it that you open up the discussion towards that. having said that, we need to start somewhere. And I think to think about lobbying against those kind of things. Okay, good luck on that. You
Yeah.
need to have a very good, very good stomach to to stomach that. I think.
And a lot of money.
Oh, hell yes, hell yes. But it needs to happen. But I think
Yeah.
that's not how we can help ourselves right now. Right now, you need to influence those things that you can touch, you can literally work with. And there are some things that are low-hanging fruit, and there are things that are a bit more challenging. What do you think are the low-hanging fruits in our daily lives where we can have the biggest impact with the easiest actions?
Can I bring you into a meditation right now so
Mhm.
we can let the listeners know what that sounds like?
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you, Stephen, to close your eyes with me. Yet the listener, if you're driving or needing your visual, please don't close your eyes.
Yeah.
But the other prompts you can do and access. So I'm just going to ask you, Stephen, to close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose. And you're going to bring your awareness to watching your breath go in and out through your nose. Don't try to control your breath. Just be observant of its rhythm, and there might be some sensations or feelings that are coming up in the body. It's okay. Let them come up and let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just be. Be with your breath. Keep your awareness on your breath. The mind at this point usually doesn't like this, so there might be some bucking or some thoughts that might be coming up. You're fine. Just keep your awareness watching your breath. Those sensations and feelings will pass. You're safe to feel. You're safe to let go. Just stay with your breath. Just continue staying with your breath. Now, while staying with your breath at your own time and your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes while still staying with your breath. So for some of your listeners, if they've never meditated before, this was what meditation is, of allowing yourself to be in that stillness and interacting with your biology.
And it's beautiful. The way we are breathing is, however, often a thing that we never have been taught. And many many people I meet are breathing often with their upper chest. It's that kind of
Hyperventilating.
exactly. Whilst what we have just done is nice, calm, deep breaths that go all the way into the tummy. And with that, my tummy, with taking a breath in, has come out and then come back in. So there's really deep breathing. Now, what that has done, it has actually stretched with each deep breath. It has stretched my vagus nerve, which is the calming down nerve. And by just taking these calm, deep breaths, how long was it? 2 minutes?
Not
If
even
that?
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just my voice now. Earlier on, we were, yeah, come on, come on, come on, come on. And now I'm very sedate, and probably half of you are going off to sleep. Okay, so that is not play thing. This is not a mask that I've just put on. This is how 90 seconds of meditation have changed my physical state. And how beautiful is that? Talk about easy and didn't cost me money. It didn't. It was not painful. On the contrary, it was actually very beautiful. Wow. Okay.
And so, like I say, I guide people in
Yeah.
this because my nervous system allows people to engage with their own nervous system. And so there's like a hypnosis kind of
Mm,
trance in the energy and my voice and my tone,
mm,
because I really engage with my own nervous system so that that tone can vibrate and signal out to the
mm,
other nervous system and the vagus nerves that
mm,
you're safe to go into the body. Because most of us are just in our head. We're not in our body.
mm.
And if you want to get the messages and the signals and have that relationship with worth and love, you have to come back home in your body.
Oh,
It can feel
beautiful,
threatening.
beautiful, beautiful.
And I
And
wanted to demonstrate this because a lot of people hear breathe and it's like, don't tell me to breathe. I'm already doing that. Yet, like you said, we weren't taught the missing piece of bringing your awareness to the breath, because the breath is always in the now. Like I get people are like, oh, I'm trying to get to be present and be in the now. It's like you're always there. It's just that you're stuck in your head. You're not
nice.
in the reality of being with your breath in that now and in the present moment.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Wow. Nat, you're an amazing woman. I give you that. That was actually a very lovely demonstration, and I was surprised how quickly my state changed. That was a very powerful thing to experience. In all fairness, it's not the first time that I've done that. So therefore, maybe my body recognized and my mind very quickly recognized, oh, that's what we're going to do. Yeah, let's do it proper. Um, so, but isn't that with every new skill? First time
Yeah.
you try it, it's going to be absolutely bloody awful. The first time you go into a gym and they show you the weights, even the little weight will look like a monster to you. And then 6 weeks, 12 weeks later, you're throwing those things around as if there's nothing. Um, and that's exactly the same thing with new coping mechanisms, with new skills such as meditation, such as breath work, such as maybe other forms such as maybe yoga, trauma focused yoga, or things like that. These are often the same, these are often different approaches towards the same goals of mindfulness, of bringing you into the here and now, and giving you
Getting
a,
back to your
yeah.
body.
And with that, you suddenly have got a feeling of peace and serenity that you were missing. And suddenly you realize, wow, okay, I can either have peace of serenity or I can get really pissed. And then the next morning have anxiety and have shame and guilt. So you've got suddenly a different option, a different choice.
I would like to say something on that.
Hmm.
Anger gets such a bad rap. And I teach my clients to befriend anger because anger is healthy. You just have to give it a way to have expression that works with you rather than the shame and guilt come on because it hijacked your behavior. And so a lot of people are not interacting with their anger, and it builds up and it builds up until it has to come out. And then it comes out by hijacking your behavior, and you take certain actions that are not of how you want to show up. So, some techniques that I teach my clients is, okay, if you're really angry, take a pillow and start screaming in it. And some of them are like, this is the silliest thing, and I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not a kid. And it's like, well, were you ever allowed to do that as a child? Well, no, I wasn't allowed to feel anger. I was told no. Well, this is why you're going to give it expression and connect back into it. Or
Okay.
smash rooms are a good one too. Because, just to say to choose when you're in an anger state and a boundary has been violated or something's going on, to say that the simple of, well, you could pick peace and calm, or it's not that easy. You cannot override biology.
Yeah.
So you have to help yourself transition. There's no like polar. So it's like, okay, if anger's coming up and rage is coming up, how can you work with it rather than suppress it or shame yourself because you took some actions that go against of how you want to show up?
Very nice. Very nice. Or an alternative to smashing things might be to actually consider a workout. Most of us are unfortunately not so physically active. Most of us are
Yeah.
probably more sedentary in our lifestyles. What is to say that you can't actually jump on a bike if it is safe to do so in your surroundings,
Yeah.
or to go for a swim, or to go for a long walk, or to walk upstairs? And you don't need to have an expensive gym membership. Many of us have got stairs in our immediate surrounding. The Stairmaster version 1.0, i.e. stairs. Well, see how many times you can get up and down them. And until you're really sweating and until you're really saying, well, that's enough. And if that is after
Yeah.
2 flights of stairs, well, that's fine. And if
That's
you walk up the Eiffel Tower there, well, no, not bad too. So, but
Yeah,
it is,
exactly.
and here we are. We are touching upon so many beautiful coping mechanisms. And what are we doing with it? Where the moment you're starting to exercise, you're opening up your muscles and drawing some of the glucose in. You're changing your state within your body. You're increasing your breathing. Therefore, you're increasing your acid base. You're touching upon all kind of hormones. Bloody hell. Talk about all those interconnected webs of functional medicine. You're just doing one thing, exercise, yet you're pulling on all those kind of things. Now
Exactly.
imagine now you're making the choice of, okay, well, I go up now some flights of stairs. Not too much, just actually 2 minutes. And then you have another choice, maybe to say, well, now I drink a glass of water because I feel actually really thirsty. And probably now you finally admit that you're dehydrated like a crisp. Okay, so imagine now that your anxiety levels um, were maybe, just maybe, sustained by your body saying, my God, there's far too little water in me. If I don't get some water, I will die. Literally, if 3 days, 4 days without water, you die. Now, there you are. Now you have been chronically dehydrated. And can you imagine that played a role? So you are taking action, guys. So you did something good for your body. That's a win. You've taken action. And now twice taken action. You've drunk a glass of water. Now you say, okay, I've got a sandwich. You know what? I'll put a salad leaf on it. Wow. It's certainly not big, not massive, but you have taken action. 3 steps. 3 steps you've done. Wow. So
Exactly.
there are so many things we can do. And each and every one single step will not change the world. But imagine if you just keep going that with small, measurables, smart goals. I think that's what you are all about, NatNat, isn't it?
Yes. And to add to your exercise, because I know a lot of people hear the word exercise and it gets daunting. What I tell my clients, because I always want them tethered to play, dance. Music is one of those things that can
Yeah.
change your state of mind. And the body does movement, and you're able to do expression. And you're able to do that somatic release with the body without analyzing. And so you can get into a really good cardio with some dance music if you put some high elevated music and everything else, but at least you're finding play in that also. And that it doesn't have to feel daunting, that it's a structured thing of exercise, because some people really don't have a good relationship with that word. So I just try to
Nice.
work with people, let me replace it with dance
Nice.
and bring the play in there, that it doesn't have to look like a structured thing, that you're moving your body. Because your lymphatic, that we didn't talk about, is the biggest thing, that we need to drain all of the toxins that are going on in our body.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. When you were saying express yourself, there is a lot to be said about the different parts of our brain and how to deal with trauma. For example, the cliche that you see a PTSD a warrior, literally a soldier coming home from war, and now sitting there and painting his demons. There's a lot to be said about that, because we are using non-verbal ways of expressing our not so nice feelings, our emotions there. And often following trauma, words are not enough. So there is a strong power in actually doing that with painting, with creativity. I did never consider the dance as such a creative outlet as well. But of course, now that you have mentioned it, I love it.
It's body language. It's a
Yeah,
language.
of course it does.
And it's
Yeah.
somatic, as we're like, I teach my people also that replace trauma with energy. So it's stored energy in your body that you may not have interacted with it. So you have to release it in some way. And you don't want to analyze it, because if it gets analyzed, it's not going to come out of the body. You're going to push it right back down again.
Mm.
So with the dancing, it allows to have that expression without you looking at it. So all of a sudden the body can move in a certain way. And then you feel all of a sudden a pang of sadness, or a pang of rage, or a pang of fear, yet you can still move through that with some expression. And then there's those somatic releases from the nervous system to come back into safety and have an openness. And just to rewind back to when I said to scream in a pillow when you're angry, it's because when we use our voice of vibration, it stimulates the vagus nerve, because it's in the back of our throat. And so even if you're angry too, if you can start humming music to yourself, very helpful to help regulate your system. And because the main thing is, when you are feeling, your 4 Fs of fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, if you feel your nervous system got activated or you're triggered, if you can start humming, it can bring safety, because the main thing is telling yourself, I don't feel safe, so I need to find what that safety is. But that's a process to start being able to get into that language. So a lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, how would I get there? And it's like, well, it's in the real life of practice. And what I'm going to tell you is, you have to allow yourself to
Well,
be messy. It's going to be messy.
wow. Wow. I learned a lot. My brain linked today a lot of very basic things together in a very different, different way. And I am incredibly grateful for that. So see, it is, if we put people like you and me in a room and suddenly bounce things off each other, 1 + 1 makes 3. And it's absolutely fantastic. That's why I love my show. That's where I meet amazing people like you, NatNat, who are out there to make this world a better place. And I'm incredibly grateful for your insights. These are all lessons that you had to learn the hard way. And each of us is going through life. Each life has trauma. So don't be ashamed. Don't be upset about it. Well, of course you can be upset. You should be upset about trauma, because trauma is a bitch. But at the same token, we have got a choice of how we deal with trauma. And it's absolutely fine to curl up in a ball and cry and lick your wounds. That's part and parcel of dealing with
Even
it.
scream.
Oh, touche.
Sometimes you have to
Touche.
howl. You got to howl that stuff out, because it's just too
Yeah.
overwhelming in the system. And
Yeah.
we've been so indoctrinated that our emotions have to look a certain way
Yeah.
to be able to express that energy and what we're feeling internally. Because only, like, the depths of our suffering, we only know. We
Yeah.
can only express it a little bit to other people, but really that in depth of our own suffering. And
Yeah.
it's cultivating the tools that you need to keep showing up,
Yeah.
that you're willing to face another day,
Yeah.
to, like, to minimize the trauma that some people are going through. I never want to do that to somebody.
Sure.
So all my intention is, I want to help facilitate that you matter, and that you're able to show up just one more minute, one more hour, and that you don't feel like you're a sense of having to do it alone, and that you're accepted where you are, and that you can work with your biology.
Wow. And I think that is the beautiful key message to take home. Whatever is going through, or whatever is happening right now in your body, for everyone who is listening, who is watching, it is normal. It is biology. Whatever you're feeling is a wave of neurochemicals washing over your brain. And if you're in the ocean and you see a big wave coming, you can shout at that wave and you can be angry about that wave. And you tell that wave, go away, wave. I hate you. I do not want you to come. Do you really think that wave would care? So no, it's just coming. So you might as well learn how to surf the wave, or how to dive underneath the wave, or how to let the wave pummel you. Just experience the power of it. And it is, these are all options, but the wave will still be there. So it is a biology that we're dealing with. And I love it. I love it the way you have reframed our thinking, my thinking about the acceptance of what is happening there, and giving me more an understanding of this complex, beautiful human being that I am. So Nat, you're amazing. You're amazing. Where can people learn more about you? And if you want to connect with you and say hello to you, where can they do that?
Well, I have my website, which is liftoneself.com. And for your listeners, I've created a special landing page for them. So it's going to be liftoneself.com/Neff, Neff. And they're just going to have to put in their information, because this is the way technology is right now. And then they're going to be able to get an audio of the meditation. And it's going to be a 10-minute meditation. And I actually
Beautiful.
do some deep belly breaths with them, so that they can regulate and feel those big emotions and energy that goes on in the system. And then they can find me on social media, such as Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, under Lift OneSelf also.
Look down there into the description of the YouTube video and the podcast, because we have got NatNat's data all down there. Very easy for you to check her out. And what have you got to lose, guys? Okay, it is, yes, you're all very clever people, but sometimes we are too clever for our own good. So I invite you to become, to create a power team, and to be the dumbest member of the team. And to have someone like NatNat by your side can only lift you up to levels of understanding that you can't even dream of at this moment in time. So absolutely, go out there, make this world a better place, guys, by starting at yourself and starting to understand yourself better. And with that, if we all do that a little bit, damn, I mean, I sincerely hope we can stop the world blowing apart. And yeah, wow, NatNat, please keep doing what you're doing. Keep delivering these messages of hope, because that's really what they are. I strongly believe that we can make this world a better place, and you're a big part of that. NatNat, thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for the light that you're bringing, because you're providing the tools for people to really find a different way to relate with themselves. And I just want to leave your listeners with the same sentence I leave with everybody, is to remember to be kind and gentle with themselves, because they matter.
Beautiful. You guys out there, look after yourself. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.